welcome to a James Bell Associates podcast series on pathways to child welfare careers. This podcast series was developed on behalf of the Children's Bureau, Administration for Children and Families, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, by James Bell Associates, a consulting firm based in the Washington, D.C. area that provides research, evaluation, and technical assistance services in child welfare and related human service fields. For this podcast series, we'll be discussing programs and initiatives at the federal, state, and local level, and through partnerships with community colleges and universities, to assist students in obtaining the academic and professional credentials needed to launch careers in child welfare, and to support current professionals through ongoing training and support programs. To introduce listeners to an array of perspectives on building and sustaining the child welfare workforce, Drs. Amanda Barczyk and Leah Bouchard with James Bell Associates will be speaking with child welfare professionals, students, and academics who each bring unique and valuable insights into the various avenues for launching a career in child welfare and for aiding current professionals through ongoing training and support systems. Thank you for joining us as we learn about educational and training pathways for careers in child welfare.
Hello, this is Amanda Barczyk.
And this is Leah Bouchard.
Today we are thrilled to speak with Katelynn Jarrells and Naomi Reddish. Katelynn is the program head and associate professor of human services and mental health at Brightpoint Community College. Her background is in social work, where she practiced in child welfare and macro social work before turning to academia, where she started as an academic advisor. She is currently earning her Ed.D. in higher education leadership. Our next guest, Naomi, is the administrator for community-engaged child and family well-being initiatives and assistant professor at the Virginia Commonwealth University School of Social Work. Her current role includes managing multiple child welfare-funded projects, including the Title IV Child Welfare Stipend Program, the Consortium for Resource Adoptive and Family Training, and she collaborates on the Child Welfare and Addictions Fellowship. Her practice experience is in public child welfare, and she is an experienced forensic interviewer and a member of the Motivational Interviewing Network of Trainers. So welcome, y'all. I'm so glad to have you today. And we like to get started by asking y'all about your path to a career in social work. So why don't we start with Naomi? Naomi, could you tell us your pathway to your career in social work?
Yeah, that's very interesting question. Thanks for that. Well, like many folks that are younger, trying to figure out what college looks like, I was really asking myself all of those questions. What do I want to do? And one thing that was clear is that I wanted to be a helper, and I really wanted to have a professional skills and tools to do that, a profession, if you will. So I started at community college initially, and then transferred to Virginia Commonwealth University after finishing my associate's degree there. So I still wasn't exactly clear on what my complete educational path or journey was going to be when I transferred, but I had some great foundational opportunities for reflection and some good credits already completed. And so when I transferred to VCU, I decided to major in English because I figured, if nothing else, really building my writing skills would help me with wherever I went next. And at the time, I was considering either a master's in teaching or a law degree, but still wasn't quite settled. And a dear friend at the time, who was a child welfare social worker, asked me if I had ever considered social work and working with families in child welfare, to which I had not. But I started exploring that and reflecting, and looked into social work, and decided to apply for the Masters of Social Work program and also for a program within that program. At the time was called the Child Welfare Education and Assistance Program, and it's now called the Title IV Child Welfare Stipend Program. So I actually am an alumni of the program that I now run.
That's
and
great.
so that's sort of what started me on that journey to being a child welfare social worker.
Thank you so much for sharing that. We love hearing all the different pathways. And yeah, I bet your English degree comes in handy now.
It does.
How about you, Katelynn?
So I often, when I'm talking to my students, there will be like this imposter syndrome with social work students in particular of I have a past where I was a client and now I'm stepping into this role and I don't know if I'm qualified. I don't know if I know what I'm doing. And there's just this tension there that comes from kind of switching your role. And so that was a similar experience for me. So when I was in high school, just experiencing a lot of things at home, parents with some pretty significant mental health challenges, and I was helped by a lot of social workers. And so I often say to my students, if you come to social work, it's usually because you were helped by a social worker and you want to give back. You needed a social worker and you didn't get one, or you had a social work experience that was not the best and you want to improve what that looks like in helping clients. So that was a little bit of my experience. I was in therapy and I remember I was looking to go to college, first generation college student, and I asked my therapist, what was your degree in? And she told me social work, and I already had an interest in going to VCU. She told me they had a great social work program, and so that was my path to the social work profession.
Wow. Yeah, I feel like you're so right that a lot of social workers come at it from personal experience. And yeah, I love that you both had such different stories too, because that's something we've been really showing on this podcast is how different everybody comes into the social work field.
Yeah, it's such a varied pathway. Katelynn, I'm curious if you can talk to us a little bit about your community college program and how people can use it as a pathway themselves to become a child welfare professional.
Sure. So we have an articulation agreement with VCU as well as some other four-year institutions where students can actually earn their degree in pre-social work from Brightpoint. So this prepares them for the four-year institution. We have adjunct instructors with a variety of backgrounds, including child welfare. So our program really helps set up all of the foundational generalist skills to where if a student wants to go into child welfare, I think transferring to VCU, talking to Naomi about the child welfare stipend program is a great next step.
Fantastic. Yeah. I mean, it's great that you guys already have that agreement. So students have a very clean path into a four-year school. What are some of the required classes needed to transfer to Virginia Commonwealth University?
Yeah, so it is a seamless transfer. We get your introductory English, math, science courses, all that fun stuff kind of out of the way at Brightpoint. And then in addition to that, some of the major coursework includes introduction to human services. So we use human services and social work interchangeably at the community college. Because of title protection, we can't technically call it social work because for it to be social work, it has to be from a four-year accredited institution. But VCU does recognize it as social work education upon transfer. We also go over practice skills in our mental health skill building courses. So we work through case studies so that students can go through the process of intake and assessment all the way through termination with a client. So they go through these case studies, work those skills, practice interviewing skills. And then all of this culminates in an internship. So all of our students complete a 100-hour internship at the end of their course. We focus on next steps. We focus on resume building and just connecting skills and classroom content to practice. Students do also have the flexibility to find their own internship, and they would work with me on ensuring that it meets all of our requirements. So students interested in child welfare can get that experience while they're at Brightpoint.
Fantastic. Yeah. So it seems like there's kind of a core curriculum that culminates in this larger internship. I'm curious if there are elective classes at Brightpoint that would be considered relevant for students seeking to make that transfer as well.
So we do have 2 certificates that are essentially built into our coursework. So students do also have the option to graduate from Brightpoint with not only their pre-social work Associates of Applied Science, but also either a substance abuse assistant certificate, which leads to a statewide credential called the CSAC-A, or Certified Substance Abuse Counseling Assistant, or they can go the route of bereavement and grief, so helping work with families through death and dying, through end of life, and through what comes next. So while they're not child welfare specific, we know that these issues impact children. And so if you want to get some more specialized knowledge on those areas to then apply to your work in child welfare, or just to get additional credentialing, that is an option as well.
Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you.
I was curious too, what are some examples of the internships they might take?
Great question. So we have a lot of students that work in hospice areas, and then just really runs the gambit from different state agencies and nonprofits. So I have students right now working at agencies like Recognizing Children's Gifts, working with children on the autism spectrum. We have students that have interned at Full Circle Grief Center. They have some interventions that are specific to children. Agencies like Stop Child Abuse Now. So there are a lot of different options. Our students are also kind of geographically spread out. So a lot of agencies in Richmond and the greater area, but also I've got some students that are in like Newport News. So it's really an opportunity for students to network and find agencies that they're interested in. I've had students work in Department of Social Services before, for community service boards, but primarily it's a lot of nonprofit institutions.
That's really great that they get that experience. Yeah. So Naomi, I was curious, when they come to VCU or a four-year university like VCU, how do y'all support students interested in the career in child welfare?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you know, as you may know, there are a number of undergraduate degrees available that provide students with some foundational understanding of human development and behavior, that gives students some understanding and skills for working with people. For example, psychology, human services, social work. However, I really think that undergraduate social work programs are uniquely suited to educate and train child welfare workers and child welfare professionals because of their focus on working with the whole person in the environment. And you know, a core of our work is really assessing a whole person and working with them where they are, and that includes biological, psychological, social, and spiritual. And really emphasizing our profession's values as well, including direct practice and policy and advocacy work. And the reason that I mention that is our programs work directly and diligently to support students from that same frame of reference. And so it's our professional values in social work we also apply to our work with students within the School of Social Work. And so they get that unique person and environment support from their advisors and from the whole team in the School of Social Work at VCU in particular. But there are specific resources and support for students who are really interested in working in child welfare practice. And one of those is I have the joy of working with is that Title IV Child Welfare Stipend Program that I mentioned before. And that's a partnership with the Virginia Department of Social Services. And so students that apply and are accepted into that program for our B.S.W seniors in their senior year, they can apply and if accepted, get $10,000 towards their tuition and fees. And get additional training, specialized state training, additional courses in child welfare, and they have specialized field practicums within a local DSS agency in Virginia, along with a lot of other support that the program provides.
That's so great. It seems like a really great transition for a student to take.
Yeah, absolutely. Could both of you talk about what you wish people knew about community college's role as a pathway to a career in child welfare? We can start with you, Katelynn, from the community college perspective.
Sure. So, and this is pretty broad. It's just how community colleges can support anyone with going back to school. We are open admission, so anyone can apply to come to Brightpoint. We're doing rolling admission, so we accept every semester. And there are so many supports and resources at the college that students are able to access. So our program in particular is G3 funded, meaning that if a student is below the poverty line for a certain extent, they get FAFSA and they're not able to bridge the gap between what they get in FAFSA and the amount of their tuition. G3 funding comes in to support those students and to help them bridge the gap financially so that they can go to school. In addition, our program, all of our human services and mental health courses, with the exception of one, use open access textbooks. So textbooks are completely free to students. There's no additional cost. So these types of resources are available to all students and are very helpful in allowing the student to focus on their coursework, to focus on working with children and families, if that's what they want to do, working in the community, focusing on what they're doing at their internships. We have several programs to support students from all walks of life. Supports for students that are parents, right, that are coming back to school, students that have taken time off between maybe a previous degree and coming to school now. So these things that might be seen as certain roadblocks to students are addressed at the community college so that students can come and gain access to a higher education. And then in particular, obviously at Brightpoint, having the relationship with the four-year college, knowing about, the child welfare stipend. And so if a student comes to me and advising and says, I'm interested in child welfare, I can say, look up this program at VCU, or even better yet, here's Naomi's email. Really, having that personal connection with a student and being able to help support them in whatever they may need.
Yeah, that's great. Naomi, what about from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's so many benefits that, Katelynn even touched on. And obviously the financial benefit is huge, but also the flexibility for students to be able to remain in their community. When we think about the cost of college, it's not just all of the costs associated with attending school, but it is potentially relocation or other costs associated. And when you're in a community college setting, you really have the flexibility to stay close to home. And as we mentioned already, with our strong articulation agreements, those students can also easily transition to the four-year university at VCU to finish their education. And now we have an online program. And so if students do need to stay real close to home or have caregiving responsibilities, like we're seeing some of our post-traditional students already have caregiving responsibilities when they're working to complete their degree, they're able to take care of their responsibilities in the community, provide for their families, but still work on their degree, which is incredibly useful. We also see it as an opportunity for students to work in the communities where they're most comfortable. When you grow up in a community and continue to be there as a practicing social worker in child welfare, you know so much about the families and the resources available in your community. And so it just provides a lot of continuity of care for our clients. When you have people in the community working with you who know where the resources are and can engage with you around things that are important to your community. And so we've really seen an incredible opportunity with our students that are living in various places across Virginia, tend to, when they don't move to VCU for school and they attend online from their own communities, they're more likely to work in those communities. And they're meeting a significant need in our child welfare workforce because they are able to start at a community college at a lower cost of school. They're able to stay in their communities, and they're able to continue on to finish their bachelor's degree and even continue to their master's in social work if they choose to, and stay and live and work in their communities. And so that, I think, is a huge benefit as well. We also have just a lot available for our students. So Katelynn already talked about those articulation agreements, but when students do transfer to VCU, we have, for our upper level program, we have a cohort model. So students typically take classes with the same group of peers throughout their first and second years. And so we intentionally place articulation students together to foster that built-in support among peers who share that similar transition and educational career trajectory. And we have a lot of emphasis on community building, even in the way that we've structured our programs, both online and on campus.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It seems like there are a lot of advantages to being able to begin in a community college versus a four-year degree program, especially if the four-year degree program is online. So it makes it a little bit more seamless. Those advantages continue. You get to stay in your community and hopefully have some, ability to be a little bit more nimble financially when it comes to getting higher education. So that's fantastic that you guys make it so seamless for students.
So we talked about the advantages. I was curious, could you both describe some challenges or even things for people to consider when choosing this community college as a gateway to their child welfare career?
Great question. I don't know if Katelynn wants to start on this one.
I can start. What immediately comes to mind is kind of left over from when I was an academic advisor in VCU School of Social Work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that the online program addresses some of this concern. Naomi referenced post-traditional students, and I've referenced a little bit of the different walks of life that many of our students have and come from. And the community college is very flexible. All of our courses are offered online and right now and in person. We have 15-week courses. We have 7-week courses. We offer almost every one of our major program courses every semester. And so students, it's not like the cohort model. They can kind of pick and choose. They can jump around. If you need to take time off and come back, you could take one semester, come back seamlessly the next. You could take 2 semesters, 3 semesters. A lot of our courses are in the evening because most of our students do work full time or even like multiple jobs. So The four-year institution, the transition to that can be challenging if a student isn't prepared for the different set of expectations at the four-year institution.
Oh,
So
I see.
you might not be able to have class in the evening or at the exact time that works for you. Or if you needed to take a semester off, it might not be as easy to come back right in the next semester. It might take some more planning and some more support from someone like your academic advisor or your professors. So it takes a little bit more, I think, self-advocacy sometimes. And so there's also a transition from, I think, the level of support that's given to students, and there is a little bit more expectation of ownership of the educational experience. And we do try to communicate that to students while they're at Brightpoint, so they're prepared for that transition. And I do work really closely with the advisors and the program director of VCU's Bachelor of Social Work program. So we have a really great working relationship where we talk about some of these challenges, but that would be something that I would think would be important for a student looking to go this route to understand.
That's great. You give them kind of the heads up about that, because I can see, I mean, I remember when I was in undergrad, even like missing the class, then having to wait till the next year to take it. So that is helpful to know. How about you, Naomi? Can you think of any other challenges or things people should consider?
Yeah, and Katelynn touched on some really good ones, and I think I would agree that there is a shift in expectations at four-year university, and so while VCU offers a lot of support, a lot more of the responsibility falls on the student to be really proactive in seeking out that support and those resources. And so using community college as a springboard is a great decision for so many students, but it's really would be important for them to really be prepared for that transition, because it will feel like a little bit of a jolt, adjusting from one program or one structure to another. You're going to meet new people, and they may have different ways of supporting you. And so it just is another transition. And so just being aware of that. I think some of the challenges I initially thought about for my own community college experience are less of a challenge anymore, because our system has done a great job of resolving those. I know when I transferred, it was a lot long. It was a while ago. And I actually did the math. It's over 20 years ago that I made that shift. And so there were a number of credits that I was not able to transfer over to VCU, but I think they've done a lot of work to resolve that now. And so I think the challenges are easily mitigated by just talking with your advisor early at the community college about what will transfer, about what your path looks like, and then communicating to your new advisors once you get to VCU, so that transition can be really as smooth as possible for you.
I want to add something. This is very specific to Brightpoint and VCU, but it's just something that I remember students bringing up is just kind of the culture shock of, I don't know if any of y'all have ever been to Brightpoint's campuses. We have one in Midlothian and one in Chester. They're both quite quaint and cute and like insular. And it's very easy to get from one place to another. We have parking for everyone. And so for students,
That's huge.
for students that transfer to VCU, that was a really recurring theme when I was an academic advisor of a student being like, where do I park? How, like, you're going to a sprawling university that's, across the entire city of Richmond. So just like logistics like that. And I think just preparing students in advance, doing things like having students visit campus for orientations and new student day, things like that can be a huge benefit. But those logistics, additionally, our courses at Brightpoint are quite small, even our bigger courses. The courses at VCU in the School of Social Work mimic that size, but if a student has to take an elective course, they might end up in a lecture hall with 50, 60, 100 other students. And so something like that can be another just shift in culture that they might not expect.
That's a really good point of how it might be a little bit of a shock to the system. I went to VC for 4 years. I can tell you the only place to park is a weird little alley off Floyd Avenue or nowhere at all. So it's got to be so different going from there are lots available to you to you're having to figure out all these logistics, especially when you're trying to be a student and you're overwhelmed by that process. And then you have to deal with all these little details that have changed so radically. That's a really good point. Is there anything else that either of you think is important to know about using community college as a springboard to a career in child welfare?
I think it's never too early to stoke your passion. I don't know. That's the best way to put it, I think, is use every opportunity at the community college to learn more about the work in child welfare. And what I mean by that is focusing assignments around child welfare practice, right? It could be a history class, right? And you could look into the history of child welfare and child maltreatment and how we've responded to it in this country, right? You may have some kind of economics class. What are the economics around federal funds and how states pull down those federal funds? So just to really, I would encourage anyone listening that's thinking about this as a pathway, use your core courses at both community college. And then as you transition to use some of those assignments to really educate yourself about the history of the practice of the economics of working in child welfare, to really prepare you as you go into that practice. And then I think Katelynn said earlier the word networking, really taking the opportunity to get to know folks in your community. If you're planning on staying and working in your community post-graduation, call some of those folks up and ask if you can have an informational interview. Some of those folks at your local DSS agency or your local therapeutic foster care agency or adoption agency, and just, ask for a little bit of someone's time to help you better understand the system so that you get the most out of your courses. And I would say the more that you know about how the community is approaching child welfare, the easier your assignments will be as well, because you already sort of have your brain integrating the book learning and the community of practice. And so that's something I would say specific to your journey to child welfare practice.
Those are really great advice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish I was given that advice.
So I love Naomi's answer, and just it made me think of the ways that I speak to students, and telling them something very similar. I always tell them to stay grounded in what brought them to, go this route, what brought them to human services, to social work. Stay grounded in that while you're in that difficult biology class or math class. And we're trying to make that a little bit easier. And one of the ways that we've done that is we have an advanced composition course that adequately prepares students to enter the four-year institution. It's all focused on learning APA and research-based writing, which is very important, especially at VCU, but in all four-year institutions and four-year social work programs. So we designed that course specifically for pre-social work students. So all of their research is around issues that are related to the work that they want to do in the future. And they're in that course with all other pre-social work students. So they're having these conversations even in an English course. And I work very closely with that instructor and helped design that course. So we're starting to do things like that in some of the non-social work related courses. In addition to what Naomi said about networking, some students, when I meet with them for the first time, might get a little spooked at the idea of having to obtain their own internship agency. But one, instead of having to match you to an agency, you're finding an agency that meets your needs, for your hours, for your transportation needs, all of those things. And we build in networking opportunities in the prerequisites of the internship course, so that students are doing networking that is already built in and some resource mapping. You have to interview a social worker in your first course. You can interview a social worker that's practicing child welfare. In your MEN 102 course, you do research on 5 different agencies that you are interested in interning at. You read their mission statements. You call and ask if they'd be willing to accept 2-year students. So you're getting that experience of how to communicate in a professional setting, but also understanding what resources are out there in your community, what programs are out there for children and for families. And it really helps to make students feel more competent in taking that next step. In addition to those things that are very kind of program specific, I would just want to say that for students to just be curious and to be their own advocates, again, coming from a first generation student perspective, don't feel embarrassed to reach out for help. Find that person who is going to either answer your question for you or find someone who can if they can't. A lot of times that is your academic advisor. I am a huge proponent of academic advising. I still do advising now as a program head and faculty member. There are resources there to help you at both the community college and the four-year institution. And a lot of times it just takes asking certain questions to get connected to those resources and supports.
Yeah, and there's often not a lot of other times in your life where you have that opportunity to
Right.
just ask those questions. And so I think that's a really good point, because you have to take advantage. Like, you're there, be a sponge, ask everything. So that's great.
Yeah, and can I add something? I just want to emphasize what Katelynn said, 'cause when you were talking before you said the word, I thought, oh, I need to say be curious. So I'm glad so I just want to emphasize that. Stay curious and reflect, right? And the other thing I would say is, you know, put down the phone and talk to people. Just practice talking to people in general, being curious about their lives and practicing asking good questions. As you continue in your coursework, you're going to get more and more comfortable just talking to people. And that means you're going to be more comfortable asking professors for help, asking your academic advisors for help, asking your supervisor and your field placement agency how to complete an assessment, and what resources you have available to you. And so just get comfortable talking to every kind of person everywhere, and you'll be on a good path to work in social work in general and child welfare specifically.
Yeah, that's great. That's great advice.
Yeah,
Thank you both. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Katelynn.
I'm so sorry.
No.
I love what Naomi just said about asking for help, because that is the root of social work profession, is being brave enough to ask for help or to accept help. And we are teaching this so much to students of how to work with clients doing that. And yet I often find students are being very hard on themselves when they need to ask for help. And so it's a little bit of practicing what we preach. And so I just want to, especially for students looking to start at the community college and transfer, for students that might not be familiar with higher education and academia, or maybe it's been a while, just being able to ask for help and recognizing that as a strength and something that's going to really benefit you in the long run and in a career in social work and in child welfare.
That's so true.
That's
When I was faculty, I always appreciated when people came and talked to me. I was like, that it kind of gave me a sign oh, they're into this. They want to know more. So it really does reflect well on them and does not come off as a weakness.
Yeah, I once had someone tell me social workers love to talk. So they'll be happy to talk to you if you come to them with any of your questions, any of your thoughts or feelings. That's why we come into this profession, is because we care about people. And I think it benefits students when you're among faculty of social workers who just want to help you along and get you to where you need to be. Thank you both so much for joining us today. It was so good to hear about this agreement between Brightpoint and BCU, how it could be used kind of as a roadmap for other community colleges and four-year universities, and how it really can help us build a good child welfare workforce. So thank you both so much.
Yeah, we really appreciate you being here.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you all for listening to today's podcast. If this is your first time joining us, please check out our previous episodes where we talked to a diverse group of child welfare professionals, students, and academics about the pathways to build and sustain productive and rewarding careers in child welfare. If you enjoy our podcast episodes, please share them with your colleagues and others who may find them relevant and useful. We're your hosts,
Amanda Barczyk
and Leah Bouchard, and this has been a James Bell Associates podcast.
This podcast series was produced and distributed by James Bell Associates on behalf of the Children's Bureau, Administration for Children and Families, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, under contract number HHS P 233-201-500-133I. The opinions and ideas expressed in the podcast are those of the panelists and do not necessarily represent the official views, policies, or positions of the Children's Bureau, the Administration for Children and Families, or the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.